Welcome to the Jets UK podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew Groves, and I'm joined by some of my co-hosts, David Wyatt-Hupton and Matthew Merrett. Guys, how are we doing today?
Yeah, all good, boss. I mean, had to suffer with Chelsea losing to Everton yesterday, but
Chelsea update.
Delighted to be on here and getting that out of my mind, focusing on what was a great weekend for Joe Douglas, Salah, and the Jets. Man, it's an exciting time, and I'm looking forward to kind of chatting it through because I think there's positivity around the team after suffering through last season and then those weeks. Having that positivity back is nice.
Yeah, David, how are you feeling? We're going to go through round for round, especially with your round one recap as you weren't here for Friday. But how are you feeling about things generally at this side of the draft?
I mean, I don't think it could have gone any better. I think it was better than even kind of my best projection. Getting those three guys in the first round, I mean, we'll talk about it, but that is just a masterstroke by JD. And I think, Jermaine Johnson dropping to 26, I think that's going to make a lot of people look pretty silly in the long run. So, I'm just absolutely thrilled. I'm tired as hell, man. But really excited to watch the Jets. They're going to be an entertaining team this year.
Yeah, they're going to be fun, right? Like, we don't know how good they're going to be. The AFC, as we know, is loaded. The schedule is going to be, in whatever order it comes out as, it's going to be difficult. But I think the Jets are going to be a much more difficult team to beat. On both sides of the ball, they're going to be a tough out. So that's all we really asked for. And now it's all up to Zach. They've put the weapons around him. Now it's up to him to really carry this team into the playoffs, really, at this point, over the next couple of years. So, yeah, I think it's looking really, really good at this stage. And I'm really delighted as well after the next 2 days of action after we spoke about it on Friday. We'll just jump straight into it. David, so, obviously we talked about on Friday, you were, stuck with work duties, unfortunately, but, we'd love to get your general kind of thoughts on Friday night. We were talking about it on Friday morning, Thursday night. We talked about the first round. We were talking on WhatsApp, about what was as it was happening. But you let the listeners know, like, the emotions of the night for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, particularly when Jermaine Johnson started falling, that's where I was kind of like, we're gonna move up. We're gonna move at some point, and then he just kept falling and falling and falling, and you kind of like. At one point, I was like, are we going to get him in the second round? Is he going to fall that far? So to come up and get him, he wasn't making it to the second round. Someone else would have taken him. Joe Douglas, Robert Salah, obviously absolutely loved him. Salah commented that he would have taken him at 10 if Atlanta took Garrett Wilson. So, they were really high on Jermaine Johnson. I was just thrilled to get him because it's been kind of one of those narratives. Jermaine Johnson's base stats look fantastic. Some of the advanced metrics that people throw out started to paint a different picture of him. But to come out with Sauce, Garrett Wilson and Jermaine Johnson, I mean, that is completely revamping your defense straight away. And just giving Zach another really dangerous weapon. I mean, I can't wait to see Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore just lined up on the same field together. I think it's going to be entertaining. It's going to, we're going to learn about Zach this year because he's been given everything he could possibly need to excel. So I'm really excited to see Zach's development. I'm really excited to see Garrett Wilson, but I mean, Sauce Gardner and that swag, that's just made for New York, isn't it? I mean, I'm not sure my style is that Sauce spot around his neck, and the conversation with Woody Johnson was a little bit cringe about what sauce goes in it, but
that's Woody Johnson.
That's Woody Johnson
is a walking cringe guy. Like he's just a walking.
He's like the granddad at a party, isn't he? He's just he wants to be young, cool, and hip, but. I'm looking forward to seeing every kind of interview with Sauce. I think it's going to be entertaining. So it's just going to be one of those perfect matches, I think. And a lot of people got it wrong. No one thought that the Jets were going to take Sauce, did they? The beat didn't think they'd pick a CB that high. I doubted they'd pick a CB that high. I think a lot of people did, but I'm happy to have him. And I was so happy when Derek Stingley got taken number 3. I think they had Sauce above him, but I didn't want anything to do with Derek Stingley. So having him off the board was pretty good. And they took him over at Ekim, who apparently Icky, everyone said Icky's their favourite prospect. He's number 1 on their board.
Yeah, I noticed what he was.
So aboard Albert Breer. Albert Breer has just dropped Monday morning quarterback, and he's got a section in the Jets, and he says that as David said, Sauce was always the guy for the Jets at number 1, and he said Joe Douglas kind of lent into that reputation as this O-line guy to kind of create that misdirection, which just shows a bit of self-awareness, doesn't it, and a bit of being able to kind of use the board and kind of understand your reputation and what you're looking for, and kind of get that guy. There's also a comment in there, and I recommend going to read the full article, but about how Salah's apparently evolved from where he was in Seattle and San Francisco and is now placing more of a premium on cornerback positions. I think, and we've seen that with the DJ Reed signing, with the Source pick, there is kind of more of an emphasis on cornerbacks. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they kind of match up this and kind of these picks, and this defense continues to evolve and kind of adapt over the season, because they're more loaded than they were last season at that back end. They kind of got positions in place. I mean, I still think the linebacker is a question, but that's the thing. But I think Salah's kind of shown a self-awareness, and Joe Douglas is marching with him in lockstep as they're kind of evolving, advancing, and kind of taking it forwards, because there were times last season when on third down, and we all liked Eccles and we all liked Bryce Hall, and we still want them to be around and as good pieces and as part of this defense, but there were times when third and longs were getting converted because we just couldn't hold up in man coverage. And that was also part of the fact that, and that was also married with the fact that our pass rush couldn't get home. So both of those elements are kind of being addressed in that first round with Jermaine Johnson, with Sauce Gardner. You're kind of getting that pressure, and your coverage ability is rising. So yeah, so it's nice.
That was quite an important bit, wasn't it? When Salah was asked about Sauce, because Sauce is obviously a very heavy man coverage corner, and so I can't remember who asked it. I think it might have been Connor Hughes asked. But you play a lot of zone. How does that translate? And Salah's kind of, well, we play a lot of man as well. And I think it's exactly what Matt just said. It's for those third and long situations when most of the time you will find yourself in man on third down.
Yeah. And
Sauce can just shut the door. And we're in a conference. We're in a division with Stephon Diggs and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and you need those cornerbacks now. And I think Matt absolutely nailed it there. Salah's shown a self-awareness, and all we wanted to see was a coach that evolves with what's happening around him. And I think that's what Salah's doing. He's just evolving his methodology, his philosophy on how to play defense, and that's really exciting for the Jets, because you have to do that in the modern game. You have to evolve, otherwise you will just be left as a dinosaur at the back. So really excited. And like I said, pass rush is so key. I think that's kind of been static. Pass rush has always been key for Salah. We didn't have it last year, so he had to send more people on the blitz, which he doesn't like doing. We double dipped for a defensive end in this draft. We're going to get Carl Lawson back, so I mean that position could be one of the biggest strengths of the Jets this year, after being questionably one a bit of a weakness last year with JFM, and then who else? Bryce Huff played a little bit, but he was injured quite a lot. Vinny Curry's obviously back as well this year for a bit of veteran presence. I wonder if he makes the team.
Yeah, Jacob Martin
it's a loaded position, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I think it's the self-awareness that you said, for him to see that I like this way of doing things, but the league is going to a very it's going not just pass happy, it's going like pass crazy at this point with 3-4 wide out sets, and you're going to have the cornerbacks that can kind of cover those guys, and so you can't just allow that to be a weakness. You've got to also focus on getting there, some talent in that part, as well as rushing the pass as well. You've got to also cover those wideouts that are really talented, and you're getting kind of those teams that are loading up with 3 or 4 deep, really good receivers. You've got to adapt, and so I'm really happy with that. I mean, listening to the 3 guys as they came in for their press conference, the 3 first rounders, I was impressed with all 3 of them in terms of they're just 3 impressive young men. I thought Garrett Wilson's got this kind of really steely kind of he's kind of calmness to him, but he's also, you see this determination. And when you hear, if you ever went and saw that video of the draft letters that parents spread to the first rounders, there's a video that NFL put up where some of the parents and kind of people in their life wrote letters to them, congratulating the first rounders, and obviously our 3 Jets were there. His dad you can see, spoke with a lot of power, and I think that comes from Garrett Wilson. You see, I was really impressed by him, and also Sauce. Yeah, he's just a very, very kind of relaxed dude. I think he's very confident. You can see that confidence. And Jermaine Johnson, I think the experience and the journey he's taken has really kind of giving him a lot of life experience as well. And I think you can see he just speaks with a lot of kind of maturity as well at a relatively young age. So yeah, impressed with all three of those guys and delighted that we got it done. It's incredible, going to the draft party on Friday that I went to, and any listeners who are listening that were there, great to meet you guys. But yeah, just reeling off that and just speaking with the guys there about what happened the night before was fantastic. So no, it was a great night one, and yeah, it just followed up with some interesting stuff in day 2 and 3. So yeah, in day 2, obviously they traded up to 2 picks from 38 to 35, give up a 5th rounder to jump ahead of the Texans, I'm guessing, who would probably be interested in Breece Hall, to take the guy who was the number 1 running back for a lot of people. I know David, you had him number 2, right, after behind Kenneth Walker, but most people, it was close between the two, and most people had him number 1. And then they also, at the end of the day 2, they took up Jeremy Ruckert, so the Titan from Ohio State, right at the end of the 3rd round. I thought was good value, and another great guy there. So, Matt, what's your feelings about these 2 moves on day 2?
Well, I think the Breece Hall one was a bit of a curveball, wasn't it? And I don't think it was in necessarily a bad way. I just don't think any of us quite thought that Joe Douglas would take a running back at that high. But once you take a step back and you kind of evaluate the pick, you're talking about a running back who 5-6 years ago would have been a 1st-round talent, and obviously the league has kind of shifted away from that. And this is someone who's going to be a 1A, 1B punch with Michael Carter. You can use both of them on all 3 downs. He's got the speed, and I think the Jets just continue to add like these really high ceiling athletic players on offense. Breece Hall's numbers are pretty insane. I don't have them to hand, but he's fast, he's big, he's powerful, and he's still so young. So there's room to grow. There's not much tread on the tyres, which is always the thing with running backs, and kind of wanting to make sure that you're getting as much out of them as possible. So I think it's an exciting pick, and for all of the raised eyebrows or whatever that we had in draft night when we were expecting perhaps a different name to be called there, I think come September, October, he's going to be one of the most exciting players to watch in this offense, kind of with this zone running scheme, kind of setting up the blocks and kind of being able to break plays. And I think the other upside is although the rushing game helps Zach Wilson immensely, you put him in 3rd and short and he's got more options. Breece Hall's pass catching ability is underrated, and we got so many times last season we had dropped passes onto those running back checkdowns, those kind of missed opportunities. You've now got someone in the passing game who can take a 4-yard dump off and turn it into a 15-20 yard play. And that's what it's about. That's what makes drives so much more effective. That's what makes your quarterback's life easier. That's kind of going to set the offense up for success. And you've kind of got a team now where tight end, offensive line, wide receiver and running back, you've got athletic beasts, and you got different chess pieces which you can move, and that's kind of setting this team up so that you can attack each game differently, different tactics, different schemes, whatever you need. You've kind of got the options and the chess pieces to move around and kind of create options. I think Jeremy Ruckert, for me, he was the best tight end in this class, and I loved him, and I've said that for a long time, and I thought he was going to be a 2nd round pick. So to get him at 101 for me personally is an absolute steal, and I think it's fantastic. And I think we saw in those early couple of weeks last season, LaFleur wants to run a bit of 12 personnel. He wants 2 tight ends on the field. And even with Conklin or Uzomah up there, you've still got that 3rd piece that you can rotate in. You keep them fresh, you keep them dynamic. And I think from day one, Ruckert's going to have huge upside in the run game as a blocker. He's such a polished blocker. He's got good length. He uses his hands well. And he's just a nasty dude who will drive people back. But I think the exciting thing about him is his ceiling is kind of untapped as a pass catcher. And like, he's got some amazing catches in his show reel. There was one in the championship game this season where he kind of caught that one-hander, and that changed the offense for Ohio State and kind of swung the momentum around, because it's this beautiful Michael Jordan-esque one-hander, goes up and gets it, and it's class. And I think that's going to be really interesting and fun to watch him develop over the coming years. And it might not be his rookie season. His rookie season might be a 15-20 catch season. But over the years, I think you can kind of rely on him more and more and kind of begin exploring how you can use him in the passing game. So it's another nice pick. I think the other nice thing as well, just to shout out, is his dad is obviously a massive Jets fan, and he was probably the happiest man on draft night when he got that call. So good pick. Nice to have him back, and I think it's just adding elements, different flavours, and different wrinkles to the Jets' offense, which is what we wanted.
Yeah.
I think Joe Douglas overall, it just kind of underpins the transformation the Jets' offense has gone on over 3 years with Joe Douglas, and it's kind of like it's now time to see the results on the field. They're going to be working hard for that, but he's had a process, he's had a methodology, and he's kind of stuck to it, and the results will be the answer. But compared to what we've seen in the last 10 years, just having a solid process, so impressive.
Yeah, it is impressive. The roster looks incredible. The depth at each position. You look at the tight end room, the running back room, the wide receiver room. The O line is looking in good stead compared to where we've had it in the last decade. It's just looking really, really solid around Zach, and yeah, it just gives you a lot of confidence in that there's if he just takes that a decent step, we're going to be a really, really fun team on offense. We're going to put up a decent amount of points with the amount of talent that's around him. And yeah, on that point what you said about Rocket's dad, someone said, I saw something on Twitter. Someone made a comment saying, there's only one thing about that's better than being drafted by your favorite team is being a dad, and your son gets drafted by your favorite team, because that emotion of like your son, the pride that you already get from him being drafted by any team and making to the NFL is one thing. And for it to be the hometown team when you guys are just crazy about the team, it's like amazing. It's just an amazing feeling. Great videos online about that. David, your day 2 thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think Matt absolutely nailed both of those. I mean, Breece Hall was a little bit of a surprise, but you heard Joe Douglas say that he thought he was one of the top 20 playmakers in the draft. So they had a mid first round pick kind of grade on him, and when he started falling, obviously they tried to move up into the back end of the first round to get him. That's how much they really valued him. And you don't see a massive amount of running backs go in the first round these days. So that kind of exemplifies kind of Joe Douglas' aggressiveness in wanting to go up and get his guys. And it made a lot of sense. I mean, Breece Hall comes from Iowa State. Iowa State runs a lot of zone. So, it's kind of a natural scheme fit. 1,400 yards, 20 touchdowns last year. A lot of them come after contact. Like Matt says, he is a powerful back. He's fast, but he is powerful as well. I think 713 yards were after contact last year. And he forced 76 missed tackles. So, all the stats are there to suggest that he is going to create a dynamic 1-2 punch with Michael Carter. I mean, I'm interested to see how they use him in terms of how much they're on the field at the same time. How they rotate, who gets more third down reps. It's going to be quite interesting just to see kind of how they get them both involved in the game and keep them involved in the game. Because, we all like shiny new toys, but we can't forget how impressive Michael Carter was last year when he played. So it's important that we continue to develop him as well. But the floor system rotates running backs, just like Salah's defense rotates defensive ends. So, it's going to be quite interesting to have two extremely talented running backs, because you don't get a break then. As a defensive team, you don't get a break. Not saying that teams got a break when Ty Johnson came on, but they got more of a break than they'll get when Breece Hall and Michael Carter's on there. So that's just really, really interesting selection. I really like it. I like the aggressiveness of moving up as well to get above Houston. Apparently they were going to take him. That's the room that's coming out. Houston were absolutely clocked in and taking Breece Hall there. So Joe Douglas knew that. Like Matt said, he uses the board well. Didn't have to give up a massive amount to go up and get him. And I think it is a case of quality over quantity in this draft, and that's absolutely fine. We are at that point where we need those difference makers, and obviously he felt that Breece Hall was a difference maker. So really impressed. I can't wait to see him on the field. That's going to be a really interesting. And Ruckett's just a nice story. It's just a great story. You saw the reaction, you saw the passion that Ruckett just tweeted and showed in his face. Like, he wants to be a Jet, and this is what we've been saying all off season. We want players who want to be a Jet. We don't want like the Johnsons coming in who take the money. They come because they're going to get paid a packet. We want guys who just really want to be here. And Ruckett just really wants to be here. He's a Long Island boy. He grew up a Jets fan, still a Jets fan. Like you said, his dad's a Jets fan. His whole family are Jets fans. You saw in the video there were people there wearing Jets clothes. So, it's a Jets family, and he's going to work his ass off. You know that anyway, because he's that kind of player, and he was at Ohio State. But even more so to be going to the team that you support, the team that you love, you will leave nothing on the field. Like, you will absolutely go all out. And I'm just really excited to see him. That tight end room has been so bad for so long that finally we're going to have competent tight end play, whoever's on the field. And like the running backs, it's going to be quite interesting to see how they rotate these guys. Because you paid good money for Uzama and Conklin, and Ruckett's a third-round pick, so you might not get the most run this year, but he's going to be in there a lot on the early downs because he's such a good blocker. He's such a good run blocker. He's a good pass protector. So it's going to be interesting to see how they work him in. But final point on your kind of, I did in the newsletter this morning. I had a look at where we were in 2020 in terms of the skill position players, and we've gone from Sam Darnold, Frank Gore, Perryman, Crowder, Mims, Herndon, and Griffin to Wilson, Brees Hall, Michael Carter, Corey Davis, Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Braxton Berrios, Uzama, Conklin, and Ruckert. And if that's not something to celebrate as a Jets fan, and something to really give credit to Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh for, we can't forget that Robert Saleh does play a part in these player selections. I don't know what is. It's fantastic. It's really exciting as a Jets fan to finally have a team that you can kind of be proud of and just be excited to see on a Sunday, rather than try out Frank Gore to get his rushing record. We're not that team anymore. We're a young, excited kind of team with huge potential. But yeah, it's going to be about Zach Wilson, and it always will be about Zach Wilson. But we're giving him every opportunity to succeed, which is great.
Yeah, it's an amazing to see the amount of offensive weapons that we've got. We've been so dull in the attack. Even going back to Rex's time when we were a good team, the attack was very much like hot and cold at best. Even in the better performances, you'd have a great performance rushing the ball, and if it didn't work out, it went cold. There's just talent on every. If you want to attack a team in different ways, we have the ability to do so. Whether it be with the tight ends, whether it be with the running backs, whether it be within the running game, with the running backs, or go out wide and use Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson to dominate the game. We have the ability to do whatever we want to attack compared to what the opponent is giving us. So really, really exciting. To kind of my thoughts as I got to the end of my thoughts of it is that it got to the end of day 2 was. I said on the preview podcast with Andrew last week, I said you want to add people to the top of the room, right? In terms of the talent, in terms of them being like the most talented player in the room, and you could argue, I guess, Garrett Wilson because how high, depending on how high you are with Elijah Moore. I mean, but he is at the top of the room. Obviously, you do the same. Brees Hall jumps Michael Carter above in terms of ability, and that's saying something because I love Michael Carter as well. Jermaine Johnson is up there as kind of the most talented pass rusher, even with Carl Lawson there, and obviously Sauce Gardner comes to the top of that room in terms of ability as well. So you really got 4 guys who have just lifted the quality and slotted everyone below them. So you've got more depth naturally because you've added the people in that position, but you've actually increased the ability of your top guy and pushed everyone down into more natural spots. It's just great roster building as well, and then Rocket adds to that room and could be the best tight end very shortly after kind of that rookie kind of hump that a lot of tight ends have to do. So it's really, really promising. One funny story about that kind of Brees Hall pick was that I was at the party, and there's a video of me being quite shocked at the pick. I don't hate the pick at all. I was not ready for it to be running back when we moved up. I thought it would be Nakobe Dean or someone like that, but obviously we didn't know what happened with Dean until later on in the day. But yeah, it was interesting. I kind of reacted quite shocked, and then I turned around to my right, and there's Nick Mangold just standing there, kind of taking it in. I just started talking to him. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. So Brees Hall's going to have that memory of me, just the first person I reacted to was Nick Mangold, So it's just a quite surreal moment there. But no, overall, really, really happy with the day 2 business. So we roll on to day 3. We got those 2 picks early on, and they use them, which is good because then they can turn their attention to the UDFAs. They can get their press conference out the way and turn their attention to the UDFAs, which I think they did a good job with that again, and we'll talk about them later. But those 2 picks, David, you mentioned them in your newsletter, but what's your thoughts about those picks, Max Mitchell and Michael Clemens in round 4?
Yeah, I mean, we thought we were going to see an offensive lineman at some point, and I'm happy we waited till the 4th, almost to take that position. We needed that depth. We needed a swing tackle. Max Mitchell's exactly that. He's a swing tackle. He's had plenty of experience on the left and right side. And, they've said that he's even taken reps inside, and he's been practicing snapping as a centre. I don't think he's ever going to land at a centre, but it shows that he kind of has that versatility, that game that can kind of go inside and out. I thought we were going to go Zach Tom. That would have been my preference as well. It's it's nothing against Max Mitchell. I actually think Max Mitchell's a very good player. From what I've seen, I talked about him a little bit on in the newsletter in the run up to the draft, and he does have plenty of talent. He does have he's not the most athletic guy you're ever going to see in your life, but he does have a little bit of quickness to him. He's got a strong punch, and he's a leader. And Joe Douglas loves his leadership. I just thought Zach Tom just because he does have that tackle and centre, and we don't really have a backup centre, so I just thought that would make more sense.
He's the Elkin Jenkins, poor man's Elkin Jenkins, right? And that's funny that Green Bay took him because I think he's got the versatility to go right across the line where you need him.
I'm really happy he's in Green Bay as well because I think that's a perfect fit for him. Kind of similar systems, but that kind of he's going to do really well there. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a Pro Bowler in a couple of years. I generally like him that much.
It's sad that we got none of our guys though. I love our class, but obviously Strange was never going to happen with what the Patriots did, and then the Jags, who already have, they already took Devin Lloyd in the first round, but they also took who's the guy that went from Atlanta, the linebacker. No, the Atlanta linebacker they brought in as well that we were interested in as well. You got that name for us? And the guy who who I'm talking about, right? And then they took Moomer as well. I was like, okay, so they're putting a lot of resources in linebacker, and then Zach Tom going elsewhere as well. So there was a few of our guys that we didn't really get our guys, the later round guys. But Zach Tom I think will do well. But no, Max Mitchell, I think he's a good guy as well. Matt, what's your thoughts on Max Mitchell?
I don't really know him, to be honest. I'm just kind of vibing at this point on Saturday. I had a couple of Aperol Spritz because the weather was nice, so I was just kind of following on my phone.
What's your thoughts then on taking a tackle in the fourth then?
First, we were going to take a tackle at all the point. Louisiana's helmets are rubbish. Someone needs to get into Louisiana University and redesign the helmets. That's my big takeaway on this pick. I think it made sense. We always knew we were going to take a tackle, and I have done some reading and some listening to reactions since it. I don't have a take on it because I don't know, so I'm not going to pretend and make stuff up. But I think he seems like he's got the potential. He seems like he's got room to grow. People think that one day he could be a starting right tackle in the league, and that's exactly what you're looking for when you're taking someone in that point of the draft. You kind of give yourself someone who's comfortable on both sides of the line, which I think the Jets needed because of this uncertainty at both tackle positions. And we all hope that we get 17 games out of Fanton Becton this season and that Fant stays around and kind of keeps this level of play up from last season. But there is uncertainty there. So getting someone who can cover both spots and kind of means you don't have to see a Doga or McDermott out there is only going to be a good thing for the Jets and kind of being able to push on and keep Zach Wilson upright, which is going to be so important. So from that point of view,
Matt,
it's fantastic.
I really do agree. Sorry to interrupt you. I just looked at the Raging Cajuns helmet, and it looks like it's been designed on clip art.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's terrible.
The entire listenership has all paused the podcast and are now going to Google the Raging Cajuns helmet.
I have to now at this point as well.
Andres is typing away. Pause the podcast, go and look at the Raging Cajuns helmet, and then come back to us. But yeah, I think it's a good pick. I think this is kind of what you guys said a lot. I remember you guys saying this before the draft and kind of this where the corner was out there. You want to see Joe Douglas hit on a later round offensive lineman. You don't want to kind of see the first top 10 picks all being offensive linemen because that's the only time we can get hits. And we missed on Clark, so hopefully this one kind of Max Mitchell can do better. And he shares my initials, so I'll throw that out as one last take.
These are really astute takes. So then we go to the last pick of the draft. And it was the one I had heard of. Max Mitchell. He's a guy who I had done a little bit looking. I know you mentioned him, David, in your work. And so it was a guy that I thought it was one of the names in that mid-round tackle if you're going to take it. Like I was aware of the name and potentially someone in that value range. But Michael Clemens is not someone I had really paid attention too much to. I think I didn't look as much into the kind of the pass rushers further down at the point. I was looking at different positional groups like safety, linebacker. So, what's your feelings about this one? Michael Clemens at pick 117.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love that pick. I didn't look at him a massive amount before the draft. I looked at him a little bit, but mainly for that LSU game because someone told me to go and watch the LSU game. So I did that. and Michael Clemens. You cannot watch that game and not be impressed with Michael Clemens, because I think he had 3.5 sacks, about 7 pressures. He was ridiculous in that game. You couldn't block him. So I've done a little bit more research after that fact, after us obviously selecting him. Just a powerful guy, like just pure power, just like a little coiled spring. Like as soon as he gets going, he's hard to slow down. He kind of ran over several tackles last year. A lot of people had him as a second round pick, so to get him in the third or in the fourth is pretty good. I think he had an arrest, which probably did turn two arrests. Sorry, Matthew, that probably turned quite a few teams off. I think it's unlawful carrying of a weapon, marijuana possession, and driving with an invalid license twice, I think. So there is a little bit of maturity issues that teams probably got turned off a little bit by. But at the fourth round, he's well worth the kind of the gamble that it's going to be, and he just brings something else to that defensive end position. He's got great size. I think he's like 6'5", 270 pound type, or 265 pounds. So it's just got everything you could kind of want for this system that we run, and just being able to rotate him in. You know, he's not going to be expected to come in and be a 10-sack guy straight away, because you know he's going to be behind Carl Lawson, and he will be behind Jermaine Johnson, and he may be behind Bryce Huff as well. You know, he will go into the rotation, but he has the potential to be a very, very. He's a good run defender as well, which is probably something worth mentioning considering how bad our run defense was last year.
Yeah,
yeah, man.
So yeah, really good value pick. Really like him. We'll see if he can keep his nose clean when he goes to New York. It's not always the easiest thing to do. You know, Joe Douglas has kind of shown a little bit of a willingness to take more of a gamble. Obviously, Tyreek Hill, he went all in, and Tyreek Hill's far from the squeakiest clean person. So Clemens as well. I think there's another couple of UDFAs that he's taken that had a couple of issues, smaller minor issues, but he's just shown a bit more of a willingness, which everyone else in the league does. So it kind of puts you at a disadvantage. It's kind of like in college football, like being Notre Dame. They have such high entry requirements and such a squeaky clean kind of enrollment process that they miss out on quite a lot of prospects.
right.
And I think Joe Douglas has started to, just gamble a little bit more, and I think that's the right thing to do.
No choir boys, not all choir boys anymore, are they?
Yeah.
They're kind of a bit rough around the edge, which is nice, because you do need that nasty streak sometimes. And sometimes in years gone by, it's felt like the Jets have just been a bit too nice, hasn't it? And they don't want to kind of stick their heads in. And even last year, we said that when they kind of the Patriots game, when Zach got hit all over the place, no one quite had that bit between their teeth to kind of go out and get there. And you want to see that nasty thing. I think on Clemens, just to add to his measurables, this dude he's long in the arms. Like his arm length is massive, 89th percentile arms, which is just an outstanding reach. So kind of going up against the tackles, being able to kind of get his hands on them early and manipulate them, it's exciting. And he's so similar to Jermaine in terms of the styles. Like they are definitely have a type for this kind of wide 9, one gap shooter. I think you're seeing perhaps Carl Lawson doesn't quite fit that mold perfectly. He's a bit more speed, but people like Franklin Myers, Huff, Jermaine Johnson, they're all kind of built in this same mold, and they can set an edge in the run game. They can kind of go outside the tackle and build it, and then they can also use their length in the passing game. So I think it's a good pick, and they're kind of building a rotational front that's going to be effective, and that's all you can really ask for, and kind of making sure it's good. Obviously, the question with Clemens is, will he stay clean? He's a bit of an older prospect, so you're going to have to work it out fast. You don't have quite as long a runway as you might do with someone else. But at this point, last pick in the draft, I think this was probably my least favourite pick, but I think you can see the process and kind of what they were going through. So let's see how it pans out.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on kind of taking a guy with character concerns, I think at this point now, with the amount of people they've got in the first couple of years of Joe Douglas's being the GM, I think they've got a lot of high character guys. I think they're quite happy with the general vibe of the place. The core is strong to the point where you can add a few bits and pieces here and hopefully get the most out of them. Right? They're not going to, if you don't want too many of these characters, but if you have a few of them with good guys around them, hopefully that can be an influence on them to really kind of improve their, the off the field stuff kind of goes away, and that on the field stuff you really get to maximize. Like I said, take advantage of people sliding because of that. So if you think about the people in that room, Jermaine Johnson seems like a really high character guy. Carl Lawson the same. in terms of defensive leadership, you've got people like CJ Mosley there and Quinton Williams, really high character guys. So you bring this kid in. I know he's a bit older, but you bring this guy in. He has some issues, but that stuff with the rest of those guys around him, hopefully that won't be a case. There's good dudes around him, and so the potential's there. Ulbrich was apparently elated about it, so give something to him as as Mike LaFleur got a lot of weapons as well for him. So if everyone's happy, it's the last pick of the draft. They've done great business, especially in days 1 and 2. Just go get your guy, and then you can figure out some of the other needs later on. So they wrapped up business quite early in round 4 and turned their attention to the UDFA. So, David, do you want to highlight a few UDFAs that you're potentially interested in and that you're going to let the listeners know some guys to look out for?
Yeah, a couple of them I don't know. I'm going to do some research on guys like CJ Brewer from Coastal Carolina because I have no idea who CJ Brewer is. His stats look pretty good, so I'll have a look at that. Donovan Knight, the running back from NC State, is a guy who I thought was going to get drafted, so I'm quite excited to see him. He had 18 touchdowns over 3 years at NC State, running behind Icky. So I'm quite excited to see what he does. I think he could potentially fill in that 4th RB spot. We usually carry 4 RBs. I imagine that Carter, Brees, and Coleman are probably going to be 3 of them. And then you've kind of got a fight between 6 people for that 4th one, including Ty Johnson and Austin Walter and people like that. So I'm quite interested to see him. Irvin Charles is quite an interesting one. So Irvin Charles used to play at Penn State. He got dismissed from the team. I tried to find out why he got dismissed from the team, and the only thing I can see is that it was for violating a team rule, which is really vague, so I have no idea what team rule that was. But he went to IOP and had 39 catches, 792 yards and 12 touchdowns last year. So he's quite an interesting one. He's quite a big-bodied receiver. He's an outside receiver, so it'd be quite interesting to see if he could crack kind of the Jets, and if not, just end up on the practice squad. And the only other one that I probably would want to highlight is DQ Thomas, who the only reason I knew about DQ was because I was watching Reed Blankenship. Probably remember her. I don't even know what happened to Reed Blankenship. He was kind of one of my early draft kind of guys, and I just completely forgot about him through the process. But DQ is kind of he was so productive last season. He had 88 tackles, 17 for a loss, 5 sacks, and 2 interceptions. So he did a bit of everything. And when you watched Middle Tennessee, he was just one of those players that was all over the field. And as we've probably referenced, the linebackers didn't really get an upgrade like we thought they were going to. I'm still not 100% comfortable with our linebacking unit. At the minute we've kind of got CJ and Quincy as the 2 starters, and then massive question marks behind them with Hamza and Sherwood and whoever else is there. So that's why I think DQ's actually got an opportunity to stick. And I believe he was one of the first people the Jets reached out to in terms of before the draft was even done. Him and Donovan Knight. I'm trying to confirm when they kind of contacted them, but apparently they contacted them very early to try and get their contract sorted to get them in the building. So they obviously like them a lot. I haven't seen any breakdowns of the contracts because I know the Jets gave quite a big contract out last year to a UDFA whose name has completely escaped me now. I think it's a cornerback.
Isaiah Dunn.
There you go. So it'd be interesting to see if they've given a similar kind of big money contract to one of these guys, because that usually shows how much confidence they have in them making the team. So yeah, those 3 guys are
like
guys I'd watch in camp.
And then
I'm going to let Matt go. Tony Adams.
Yeah,
Matt wants to talk about Tony Adams.
My take on Tony Adams is that they have to make him wear the number 33 jersey. There's too many 33 Adams jerseys floating out there, which people paid a lot of money for. You got to make sure Tony Adams is wearing 33, because then you can get used out of it. You can wear it again with pride. You can act like it was the plan all along. So if that doesn't happen, they have missed a massive trick.
People who don't follow football that closely will be so confused by that. If he's like a practice squadder, but you just see loads of 33 Adams and just getting into football, so don't know Jamal. They're like, why is everyone really, really excited about this practice squad player?
Well, it's got to happen basically, because there's no reason not to. Show some love for your fans and just give them 33. Show that respect.
Has anyone got 33 for the Jets now?
It was Colbert last season, but he went.
Yeah.
So
it's open. So yeah. Right, there you go.
That's my message to Woody Johnson.
We've
That's
got to
all I'm
send that
saying.
through to the Jets communication team
That's
to
my
get that through to the team.
undrafted free agent take. That's my overall draft take. The one thing that I want you to take away from this podcast: Tony Adams, number 33.
The most important point. Just before we wrap up, is that we obviously have a few holes there we didn't address. Linebacker, like you said, safety. They're getting that second safety. Who are some of the guys who are out there, Matt, that you think could maybe potentially be targets in the kind of free agent, veteran free agent market that's still out there?
Well, we kind of know that they already brought in Quan for a pre-draft visit, so he kind of is where I'd start with, because he's kind of got the ability and coverage. I know he's not quite the player that he used to be, but I think in terms of giving you someone else in your linebacker room who's kind of got the experience, has been there, done that, and shown what it's about, I think that's someone that you immediately look for. And then the other thing I would do is I would pick up the phone to your old mates, Baltimore Ravens, and say, yo, you took Kyle Hamilton with the 14th pick. You've just paid Marcus Williams a lot of money. You've still got 2 decent safeties on your roster. Do you fancy sending one of them our way for a late round pick in next year's draft? And I think that could be someone like Chuck Clark, and Darius Washington, or Tony Jefferson, whoever it is, and seeing if you can get one of those guys, and then you add an easy veteran upgrade to your safety room. Unless, of course, you go all in and just try and get Honey Badger.
Well, yeah, I mean, Honey Badger's the big name out there in the kind of safety market. Another interesting name that's still out there is Jaquiski Tartt. Sorry, I can't get that name out at this point. I'm so tired. Yeah, the former San Francisco guy. Maybe the links there. He's getting on a little bit. But he could be another guy you could rotate in for a little bit of depth, so that we're not scratching around with really kind of free agents from the street halfway through the season if Joyner gets injured or Ashton doesn't really make it. I know we've got Ashton Davis there, but it's just such an afterthought.
I think Pinnock's going to play safety. See what they do with Pinnock.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they're up to. But I think there's so much talent in this team now. They've really improved it. Yeah, you can probably pick a few holes, and I think most teams have a hole here or there. As you go through the seasons, you realise what stands out. But the overall thing is that there's just a lot of talent that's been added in free agency and in the draft. They've done a really good job with those 2 tentpole events in getting talent, and we are looking at a team which should be very competitive, hopefully, and at the very least, a lot of fun to watch on both sides of the ball. There's a lot of fun players that are going to get after the ball on the defense and really, hopefully, put up a lot of points on the offense as well. So I'm feeling really excited about where we're going, but cautious because we've just, it's been a long time since we've been a relevant team and a consistently relevant team. So, yeah, just cautiously excited at this point. That's how I would phrase it. David, where is that where you're at as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm always nervous when the Jets get universal praise for doing anything. And it's kind of if you look at the draft grade, I think Andres, I put it in the newsletter today. You sent it over yesterday. The kind of compilation, or was it Matt? I can't remember, but everyone kind of gave us an A or A plus, and you kind of like, that's great. Like, I feel really good about that because it seems like it's consensus that we did well, but it doesn't sit right. It's not a very comfortable feeling being, and then you log on to Twitter this morning and some PFF dude's talking about some absolute garbage that just wants to put out there in the ether to get some attention. And you kind of like, okay, everything's right with the world. Everything's right with the world. Some people just want to say stuff to get attention. Yeah, to be contrary, that's all it is. They just want to put it out there so that if it doesn't go how everyone else sees it going, they can say, I told you so. And if it does go the way everyone thinks it's going, they'll that tweet will disappear into ether and we'll never hear of it again.
Exactly. But that's the way you're always going to have people like that. But overall, yeah, I think it's if everyone is not biased against us, there's some Dolphins and fans and other fans are probably who are in the more rivalry are kind of not wanting to admit it. But I think people have seen that the Jets have done some good work, and Joe Douglas is doing a good job at putting around a talent. Now, these things, we don't know how they work out when you get to the season and things play out, but on paper things look really, really promising. I think everyone's seeing that we're moving in the right direction, and we're coming out of the doldrums. We're coming out of being one of those cellar dweller teams, and hopefully if we can just be one of those teams that are just there or thereabouts, and maybe even sneak a playoff place, that would be a really, really exciting season, especially if Zach takes that leap, and that's part of the reason why as well. So,
Let's just say, if Zach does take that leap, what is your expectation for games 1? If Zach takes a moderate leap to be, I don't know, top 15 quarterback, let's say top 15, let's not go any higher, but top 15, how many games did the Jets win in 2022?
Go on, Matt.
7 to 10. In the 7 to 10 range, I think is fair enough. I think they still got a hard schedule, and I think what I'd love is for some, and this is for another week, and we can go into this in more detail, but I'd love just to kind of line up a couple of the easier games on the schedule in those first couple of weeks. You kind of get that squad gelling, and kind of you get a bit of momentum. It doesn't always work out, because we saw the Denver Broncos and Carolina Panthers both start 3-0 last season, and all know how that ended. But just to kind of get a bit of momentum, because it feels like every year we have a slow start, and B, have a hard opening schedule. So I'd just like a bit of a break this year, please. Give us I can't even remember who we're facing, but just a couple of those easy. Give us the Chicago Bears to kick off the season. Make a nice storyline of it, of Zach Wilson and Justin Fields meeting for the first time in NFL. But that'd be a nice game to kick us off with. Yeah,
I think you're right. We've had some tough starts for our own, for us being a rubbish team, but also I think that the schedulers have really given us some tough starts as well. So if we were able to have something that was a bit more, manageable, it doesn't have to be all easy, but just something that's a bit more manageable, so we can just get a couple of wins under our belt in the first 3, 4, 5 weeks. That would be really good to get off onto a decent start, and hopefully the young guys can then springboard that into taking on maybe a harder stretch in the middle or even at the end, because they've got a bit of momentum, a little bit of experience, and they can take on that talent, then comes out a bit more when it has to come out against some of the more tougher teams and the tougher trips that we may have. So very excited. I'm feeling very happy at the moment, as when thinking about the Jets, and I think we now just roll into the off season. Now we've obviously got rookie training camp coming up. We'll have mini camp soon. We'll start to see some of those hype videos. We obviously got all the flight. They released that kind of trailer for Flight 2022, which obviously is going to be very fun to watch as well this year. Just a lot of excitement around the team. So we're going to wrap it up for today. We will be back. We are debating when we're going to be back. I think we'll be back later in the week or early next week. We're just working out when we're going to do that. But we'll be back very shortly to kick off into the off season. We'll start getting some interesting guests on to look back at the draft and get their takes. Maybe people who maybe have slightly different opinions, because we seem to be very much lockstep on what's happened. We'll look to kind of to give you more fun as we kind of get into the kind of less. The quieter part of the season now that we've kind of passed this craziness. So, David, is there anything you want to say to listeners as we head off into the off-season, the proper off-season?
I don't think so. I think we got 2 days until we find out the London games, is it? The 4th of May?
That's
the
true.
London games. And then,
exactly.
You never know, maybe the Jets, Packers are coming to London. And then the schedule release, I think, is next week as well. So, have a bit of downtime. It's been quite hectic over the last couple of weeks as we kind of throttled towards the draft, and now it's time just to relax a little bit. And New York Rangers playoff bound Wednesday, game 1. You know how it is. Matt has to give his Chelsea update, so I'm giving you another sports update.
Right, as well, and I've got nothing to give on that front, because I'm like 100% Jets with running this podcast. So you're not going to get anything else from me, because I'd rather keep my football takes out of it, supporting Charlton, and they're just a mediocre third division team at this point. So let's not talk about them. Matt, is there anything you want to say to the listeners as we head off into this off season? Obviously, we've got a few events with the schedule release and the international game release.
I mean, I'm away from it. I'm flying to Mexico on Saturday, so you can enjoy that. I'll be sitting on a beach with a margarita and some tacos, so enjoy that.
I'm very jealous.
Just enjoy it, man. Just keep enjoying it. People, there's positivity. Just enjoy the positivity. Roll with it. check out the videos on social media. Read, enjoy, chill out. Just enjoy the vibes, man. Just be positive. It's nice.
Enjoy the vibes. Love
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Cut podcast.
Exactly. That's the I think the title for the podcast. Enjoy the vibes. All right, guys. Well, I hope you had a really great weekend following the draft, and we'll be back in a few weeks or in a week or so. We'll talk about the schedule release and things like that. But yeah, we'll be back very shortly. Enjoy your week, and we'll catch you very soon.